You ever have that feeling where you're just spinning your wheels trying to learn something? I mean, you read the chapter, you watch the tutorial, but for some reason it just doesn't stick. Well, today we are going to flip that script. We're diving into three really powerful techniques, all based in cognitive psychology, that kind of trick your brain into working for you, not against you. Ready to make learning feel, well, a little more effortless? Let's dive in.
So let's start with this. A lot of us were basically taught that the more hours you put in, the better you learn, right? We have this idea that we have to chain ourselves to a desk to have any chance of success. But here's the thing. That's not how our brains are wired at all. Grinding away for hours and hours isn't just miserable. There's a much smarter, way more brain-friendly way to master new stuff.
All right, our first brain hack is all about tackling a problem that I know we've all had. You've just read something kind of complex, maybe you've even highlighted the key parts, and you're feeling pretty good about it. You're thinking, yeah, I got this. But then someone asks you about it, and your mind just goes completely blank. It's time to crack that illusion for good.
So this super frustrating experience actually has a name. It's called the illusion of competence. And it's basically your brain playing a clever but pretty unhelpful trick on you. It mistakes the easy, comfortable feeling of recognizing information for the much harder skill of actually recalling and explaining it. Your brain's just trying to save energy by taking a shortcut, but it leaves you totally unprepared. So how do we force it to do the real work?
Well, this is where the amazing Feynman technique comes in. And the magic, the real magic, happens in step 2. Just imagine explaining the concept to someone who has no idea what you're talking about, a ghost friend, a rubber duck, whatever works. The second you hesitate, or you stumble over your words, or you have to say, it's kinda like that's gold. You've just found a gap in your own understanding, and now you know exactly what you need to go back and review.
Okay, so now you have a tool to make sure you actually get it. But what about when your brain just refuses to focus in the first place? Listen, it's probably not a lack of willpower. It's a real biological thing called attention fatigue. Our ability to really focus is a limited resource. So let's look at how we can manage it.
This right here explains the whole problem perfectly. We expect our minds to be like these marathon runners, just going and going. But really, they're built more like sprinters. When you try to force yourself to focus for hours and hours, you just overload your working memory, and you burn out. The reality is that short bursts of intense focus followed by a real break are so much more productive.
And this is the little mental trick that makes it all work. The Pomodoro technique is all about breaking down a huge, scary task into these tiny 25-minute chunks. When you tell your brain, hey, we only have to do this for 25 minutes, that big psychological wall you build up to avoid starting, it just crumbles. It suddenly feels easy, it feels manageable, and before you know it, you've actually put in a couple hours of really deep, focused work.
Okay, you've learned a concept deeply, and you focused really well to get it done. Now for the final boss. How do you stop it all from just evaporating out of your brain a week later? This brings us to our third technique, which is designed to fight what's known as the forgetting curve.
Just look at that number. Seriously, it's wild. If we don't make an active effort to remember something we've learned, our brains are basically wired to throw away about half of it within a day. This is exactly why pulling an all-nighter to cram for an exam feels so useless a week later. That information never really had a chance to stick.
So how do we fight back? With this really simple but strategic schedule. By just briefly reviewing the material on day 1, then again on day 3, and one more time on day 7, you're sending a super powerful signal to your brain. Each time you review it, you're telling your neurons, hey, this is important, don't delete this file. It's a hack that works with your brain's natural process for building memories. And what's happening is that each one of those spaced reviews makes the neural connections for that memory stronger. It's kind of like walking the same path through a forest, you know? The first time it's tough, but every time you walk it, the path gets clearer, it gets wider, and it gets way easier to travel. This is how you consciously move information from your brain's temporary folder into its permanent long-term hard drive.
So let's put this all together. I want you to think of these 3 techniques not as more work, but as a brand new software plugin that you can install directly into your brain's operating system, like today.
So to beat that I think I get it illusion, you use the Feynman technique. To work with your brain's natural energy cycles, you use the Pomodoro technique. And to build real, lasting knowledge that you can actually use down the road, you embrace spaced repetition.
So really, the only question left is, are you ready to stop grinding and start working with the natural, powerful flow of your own mind? These aren't just clever little tips. They're a roadmap to learning smarter, not harder. The choice is yours.